on this episode to talk about some knowledge that was dropped by Coach Hatem. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think there's certain things that you can only get in coaching through reps. And you have someone on this episode who has a ton of reps at multiple different levels in different sports. And I think just a lot of gems in this one.
Treadway?
To build on what Deegan said, Coach Hatem's done it all. So as a young coach, it was great to just kind of pick your brain on how to advance myself, look up to you as a role model, and to see how you've done it and kind of paved my way there too.
Listen. If you're someone that likes to tweet inspirational quotes, this man is a ready-made quote machine. Get out your pen and paper because he's going to be nonstop this whole episode.
There's about like 4 to 5 T-shirts, posters, whatever you want to call it, that came out. I learned so much, and I'm very thankful to have Coach Hatem on the show.
I might get something tatted on my ribs.
Hey, let's go. Let's go to the show. We are live, Coaches Clinic podcast. Our coaching staff, Mike Deegan, Tyler Treadway, Dustin Myers, and special guest, Denison football coach Jack Hatem is in the house. What's up, Coach?
Not much, man. Glad to be here talking to you guys this morning.
Dude, I got to give a little background. So I met both of you guys, Coach Deegan and Coach Hatem, lunging at Denison at different times. And both of y'all came over to me because I was doing some crazy shit. Introduced yourself, treated me like family almost immediately once we figured it out. And so to have you guys both on the set is really fucking cool for me. I'm just going to come out the gate and say. So it's exciting to have you guys both sitting here and then intermixed with a guy I've been coaching with forever, which is Dustin Myers, and lifting weights with since 15 years old. Yeah. And newly bearded one, Tyler Treadway. This is one hell of a cast, I got to tell you. So
I don't feel like you can really say newly bearded because that beard.
Yeah, it's been there for a little while.
That's an OG beard by this point.
I keep seeing them throwback pictures when he weighed like 165 and he got no beard.
Yeah, that was a little while ago.
Yeah, it was a little while ago. I'm going to throw it to Mike first because you guys have the longer history. And so how can we get the best out of this guy today? Because he got a lot in there, Coach.
This is an OG.
I know, right? I was reading the resume. I was like, damn, he's been doing this shit since I was like in 6th grade.
Yeah. Coach, I just want to open it up with you. I mean, can you just give us a little bit of your background, just how you got to where you are right now? I know that could take us a little while. But
yeah, I'll do the quick version.
Yeah, please.
Loved sports in high school. And training was a little bit different back then. I'm a 79 high school grad, so training was different. But I was the guy that was – hanging out at the Nautilus, trying to hang out with Steve Slater and the boys at Slater's Hardware.
All right, okay.
I'm really good friends still with Steve.
That's cool.
Just trying to learn anything I could. But for me, it was about just trying to be better at football, baseball, mostly. I was very mediocre in basketball. But it was just about being better in sports. So got into coaching. Really young, was the head coach at University of Rio Grande in baseball, and was pursuing.
How old were you then?
23. Yeah, I had a decent little run as a high school baseball player.
Okay.
And I told you a little bit, Corey, my senior in high school, my dad had a pretty serious accident, so I stayed home for 2. Mm-hmm. And in that 2 years I stayed home, I was dabbling, taking classes at OU Lancaster and started coaching. So like assistant football, baseball, coaching the American Legion team, so I got a little bit of an early start in coaching, which wasn't the plan. The plan was to play baseball, but, anyway, it worked out really good. So then at 23, I'm the head baseball coach at Rio Grande, and then,
Yeah, you knew your path was right. All right, I'm already in it as a head coach at a college level.
Right. I think as much as I loved baseball and I was probably a better player, I wanted football. I wanted the relationships. Football's crazy strategy heavy, and I like that.
You like the challenge of football more.
I do. That's hard to say because I love baseball.
Sure.
I mean, I love it. But I like the challenge of some of the challenges that come with football, the physicality and some of the different things that come with it. So then got a head high school coaching job in Minnesota, moved to Minnesota for a couple years, moved back, got a chance at Newark Catholic, and then was at Watterson in New Albany. And then eventually
you
basically
rebuilt New Albany was like not.
New Albany was crazy. They hadn't had a winning season since 1964 when I showed up there, and honestly, there's always some luck involved too, right? I had a couple really good players that were sophomores when I got there. A kid that ended up playing at Akron, and another kid that was a great player. So there was some luck involved in it too. We worked hard, but we had some good players, and then eventually, I end up with an opportunity at at Denison, and it's been a great fit for me. It's been fantastic.
Been
Love it.
13 years?
Yeah, all in, it's been 15. Been the head coach now 11. So, yeah.
When you walk over the Denison, right, you see the rock that has Woody Hayes.
Yeah.
And so you see, like, you think about in the tradition, they've been playing football there for a really long time.
Yeah.
Like 100 plus, right?
Yeah, there's some crazy great tradition there from back in the day with Woody and, and
Piper, right?
And Piper, and there's just been some, Ken Meyer, who coached with the Seahawks. There's just been some George Hill, who was the longtime D coordinator of the Dolphins.
All came through there.
Was with Woody at the end of his career at Ohio State, and it was all in that era. So we use that rock. Like if you ever see us play or practice, like that's our touch-in. Like you walk by, and if you've played for the Big Red, you touch that rock. Like this is I'm all in to be for the Big Red.
So time out. So Woody Hayes coached at Denison, or he played there, or
he coached both. Yeah.
How did I not know this?
Yeah, and there's a rock right beside the entry of the track, like where you go to the bathroom at. So I kind of give him like the little like nod on the way to the track in the morning, like what up, Woody?
I'm seeing this lineage from Woody Hayes to Coach
Hatem. Yeah. No, it's amazing. Well, the first time I met Coach Hatem, I didn't know him at all. I was at the track lunging. This is like 10 years ago. And he comes over to me, and he introduced himself, and then he goes, "Hey, I know your partner, like my business partner." So I'm thinking it's you. And he said, I know your partner, Brad, which I don't really talk about that often. But at the end of the day, he was coaching at Arvada West in Denver, which was where Brad grew up.
Yeah.
So when he came home from the league, he would
come out and run on our field.
So the fact that Coach Hatem was at the most random, he was at the high school of my business partner with MP, which is the craziest shit. And I almost didn't even believe him. I was like, what?
From Lancaster.
Like, wait, this guy be Googling me or what?
Yeah, I was like, how is this even possible?
And then the craziest thing ever at the Arnold, you were still with them.
Yep.
You pulled the bus in to our facility, and two of the guys that got off the bus played at Arvada West.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
Adam Ulrich. Yep.
That was crazy.
So those things are so odd that they connected. And so I immediately knew like me and Coach were probably going to be friends for the duration, because how is that even possible?
How is that possible, right?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then, shortly after I run into Coach Deegan and I realize what's really happening at Denison, right? I don't know a lot of the other coaches, but you two guys are so consistent in the way that you operate, the way the kids kind of look at you guys. That's why I've looked up to you guys as a coach together, just because of what you guys are building there. It's really something special you guys got going on. So it's cool.
I appreciate that. When I interviewed, Coach took me around. That was a big part of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a big part of the show. I thought getting to meet Coach Hatem and just because of where he's been and what he was doing and what they've done at Denison in the last 5, 6, 7 years now. The consistency at Denison, which we haven't seen in a long, long time. Can you talk a little bit about that, like that consistency and how you've turned that program around? And I say turn that around. I mean that with all due respect, because there was some great football play, but that was more.
Right.
More like in the 70s,
early
60s,
70s, yeah.
But now you've kind of flipped it to the current. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy and it's different, like to get into that first great season, you're doing all the things you're doing to try to be successful as anything, as a dad, in business, whatever. It's the same. You're trying to live up to all those standards. You're trying to be tough and gritty and it's consistent and, and all those things you're trying to do to get to that. But the piece that's crazy is the consistency. Because like, as for us, it's just like constant personnel change. You graduate 25 or 30, you bring in 35 new ones. You've got coaches, especially if you start succeeding, you've got coaches leaving for better opportunities. You're bringing in new ones. So the consistency is just really such a challenge. Tricky. Oh, it's so tricky. Like I tell people a lot, like, they'll look at me and say, "Man, you guys have such a good culture." And I'm like, "Thanks, but how do you know?" That's
my perception too.
I just graduated 30 seniors and I got 35 new ones coming. I got 2 new coaches. Like, thanks for telling me we have a great culture, but man, this is an everyday project.
But you're built.
It's every day.
It's constantly evolving and building. Man, that'd be tough.
And I think that's one of the things. And I think it's pretty cliche to say culture these days. I know everybody uses the term pretty loosely, but I mean, man, that's really the key. Like if you're coaching championship behavior.
It's expectation
culture,
of winning,
it's expectation of winning. If you're coaching that, like, listen, we can do punt this way, that way, another way, and be pretty sound. But it's like my guys joke that I talk about noble manhood more than I talk about football, But I think if you get that part right, man, you got a shot.
Fuck with that.
You got a shot.
So if you go
noble
on
manhood, that's fucking.
If you go on Denison's website, it says that the football program is experiencing a renaissance, and they credit you as being the artist behind it.
Yes, I read that.
So
let's go.
Renaissance, noble manhood. I feel like they're like
Yeah.
the Victorian
Wow.
era
Dropping
here.
dimes
I don't know
all
what
over
the heck's
here.
going on, man. I don't know if I want my buddies back home to hear
Yeah,
this.
oh,
I'll
yeah, I'm
really
sending
get
it straight
I'll
to
really
'em.
Send it straight to Lancaster, Ohio, right? Yeah.
So you're the artist behind this newfound renaissance. So paint the picture of how you're establishing the culture and how you're kind of bringing them from where they were to where you are. You touched on the culture a little bit, but how are you really in the trenches and building that culture?
Yeah, I mean the things that never go away is you have to recruit good players. You have to recruit good coaches. That's really critical. You surround yourself with great people, but the cultural piece, you're constantly teaching, those really valuable lessons that, I don't know, doesn't matter if it's a religious issue for you, if you just believe in the character and the things that built this country and made this country great. Doesn't matter how you view that, but you're coaching that all the time. For me, it's real important to coach that with my coaches first. Like, one of the things that's different than in baseball, it's like when I was coaching baseball, I usually had one dude with me. Yeah. Now I'm coaching football, I got like 10 dudes with me.
Yeah.
So if I can coach that group really, really well, then the project becomes better, because I know they're coaching, they have that same vision, they're coaching them. But it's really about that. It's really about convincing young men that, being a great man, and living those championship caliber behaviors is really what's going to make us succeed. And I'll tell you, like, I play on it real hard because, we're a smart school where, it costs a lot of money to go there. So I'm constantly pushing, like, we have to be blue collar. We have to be a blue collar mentality.
Gotta get some blue on our collar.
We have to, man. So our guys kind of feed off of that, but it's all those, old school basic, championship caliber behaviors. I love when a kid comes in and, and tells me, like, well, that's not our culture. And I'm like, oh, actually it is our culture because it just happened.
Yeah.
It just happened. So actually it is our culture. So I think that's been probably the biggest piece. I've been really fortunate to surround myself with some good young coaches through this process too. I've had some guys that have been just a major part of this.
Sure.
A major part of it. Yeah.
D?
All right, so I'm still kind of thinking back to when you talked about when you were kind of coming up in the coaching ranks. You talked about how you led to another renaissance at New Albany.
So good.
But you said you got lucky. You had some kids that were good athletes, and I just think, at the college level you can recruit in good athletes. A lot of times, for coaches that are listening that are at the high school level, they're kind of stuck with what they got, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So I think, what advice would you give coaches that maybe, especially if they walk into a job and they look around the room and say, hey, we got, 30, 40 kids or whatever, but they all got two left feet. We don't got any athletes in here. Because really there is going to be some limitations with athletic ability, right? So what would you say to a coach like that so they don't get discouraged as far as,
I would say, like, you have to have your priorities straight as to what you're trying to get. Like I know at Denison, like, I'm not coaching a whole team full of future NFLers.
Right.
I know that, they know that. So sometimes you're not coaching the most talented team. So if your main objective is, like, I'm going to create an elite band of brothers here, and that doesn't mean we win every single game.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, but it does mean we train like an elite band of brothers. It means we practice like an elite band of brothers, and you can still feel that. And you can still, I've coached some teams through this that weren't very successful, that didn't win all 10 of their games. And what's nice is when those kids come back, and they're talking to me, and we did build that elite band of brothers, even though we didn't win every game that season. So I would say you have to maybe have your priorities straight as to what you're trying to get. I want to win every week, and I'm going to train to win every week, but that's what you're trying for.
Conduct yourself like a champion.
Conduct yourself like a champion.
Even if we're not going to be champions.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then let's take a deep breath, chest out, shoulders back. Let's do it again. Let's go. Let's get ready for next Friday. And that's
and I have two things. I'll say I've seen it. So a lot of times you hear this on a podcast or an interview, and you think, okay, I bet he's pouting when they lose. I've seen Coach the day after after a loss on a Saturday. You see him on Sunday, it's like now the process to start for the next week. So whatever Sunday's process is, he's into that right there in that moment.
Thanks,
and
Coach.
and then I've watched that. I've watched it. I've seen he's the same man win against Wittenberg or lose. He's the same dude on that Sunday because now it becomes about the next week. And then I just wanted to chime in. I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. I think as coaches, one thing that we always should do is always check ourselves first before we start blaming athletes. So you may have a kid with 2 left feet and we stink. What are we going to? But I try very rarely to blame players. I always go, okay, what can we do as coaches? What can we do? Like, what can we control? Can we lean into that? I just think a hallmark of bad coaching is when you hear people complain about their players. And you hear them say they're soft or they're not very good. I'm like, man, like, you coach them. Like, so if you're coaching them and they're soft, is that a little bit on you? So anyways, I'm always hesitant when I hear people blame the players. And I'm not, at some point, I always tell our coaching staff at the end of the year, like, we'll talk about personnel. But for now, this is what we have.
Right.
Let's coach the crap out of them and see what we can do.
Well, look at like Army and Navy. They run those wishbone offenses because that's what they got.
Right. That's
and
what
they
have.
win and they go to bowl games. And everyone knows they're gonna have to go against that. They throw the ball 3 times a game because they know they don't have the same players. So I think part of that is, if you're really good, is coaching what you got. At the best strategy,
That's
right?
critical.
So and that was a great question too.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
In 2010, when I took the job, we were not a great football team. I think we were 4-6 that year. And as we started training and look at our team, we decided we were going to lead the country in time of possession.
There you go.
We had
That's
to.
what I'm saying. That's awesome.
We ran the ball. We ran the clock. We ran the ball. We ran the
Smash mouth.
clock. And we knew we needed to limit the other team's possessions, and we had more of a chance of winning 14-10.
Yeah.
You knew
that's who you were.
Then we did 50-48.
Yeah.
That's who we were at that point. So that's a great point.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to really, no matter what it is that you love, offensively, defensively, no matter what it is you love, sometimes you have to be really aware, self-aware of who you're coaching and what you have, and then, play to that.
Right.
Yeah.
When do you shift? Like, when did it shift at Denison where we win here? Like, that's just what it is. Like, I tried to get, like, as we were building, I think of business and this type of stuff very similar, that my expectation when we go into a business venture is this is what we do. Like, we're the fucking Patriots. We win. We expect to win. We're going to practice to win. And, you shoot for this and it ends up. But was there a shift where when people were being recruited to Denison, they're coming there because they know they're going to win?
Yeah, it really started snowballing around like year 3.
Okay.
It really started snowballing, and you could feel it in games, and I won't name names, but our defenses run off the field. It's like, oh my God, they're a little bit soft, coach. We're going to win today. They're a little bit soft. We're going to win today. And then is all that started to snowball, like the recruiting started getting better too. We're recruiting and winning on different kids. It's like, because now I can come there and get an elite education, but I can come there and play on a great team.
Hell yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, one of the things I sell to our recruits, period, is like, this is a good sports school. You want to come and watch good baseball on a Saturday? You want to come and watch a great lacrosse team, our swimming team? Like, you can come here and get a great education, but this is a great sports school, So it just all really started to flip for us about year 3.
That's awesome. Because I think that's like, when that becomes the expectation,
Right.
That's why guys play up.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's just it. I love that.
Yeah.
No doubt. Coach, you hit on something a minute ago. You talked about your coaches that you had. Is that something now at this point in your career you take pride in? Like having your coaches move on? Can you talk a little about your coaching tree?
I do. It's amazing. Like, I just came back from the national convention in San Antonio, and it was just so joyful for me. There's so many young people there that played for us. That are the offense coordinator here, the head coach there. We had Brian Mason at Denison, who was with Luke at Cincinnati, and just took the job with Marcus at Notre Dame as a special teams coordinator.
That's sick.
It was unbelievable. Like, when it started hitting, social media, I texted Brian real quick. It's like, should I be saying go Irish?
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
I'm on campus today. So it is a lot of fun. You're right. We've gotten to the point now where we have just a ton of ex-players that are in the game. They're coaching.
So cool.
And I think nobody ever thought that would happen. That was an interesting thing. Nobody would have ever thought, like, well, kids are going to come to Denison and then end up in the NFL. Or we've got 3 kids in the NFL. Coaching or doing analytics, scouting, whatever. Nobody ever thought at Denison we would have kids pursuing a career in football.
Those type of things are got to be huge for recruiting too.
They are.
You know what I mean?
They are. All of a
Massive.
sudden, the top scout for the Browns is one of our ex-quarterbacks. We've got, Brian at Notre Dame now. We've got Joel Elliott coaching linebackers at Memphis. We've got, guys out there, a bunch of guys in D3, so that's been a lot of fun.
So what makes you? I'm sorry.
You're fine.
I just one thing off that. So for the coaching podcast, what makes a great coach, or can you see someone who's going to be able to transcend and keep growing in the profession? Can you talk about some of those characteristics?
You always feel like you can, like with, I'll talk about Brian a little bit. I love Brian. He's succeeding at a really high level right now. I remember when he was a senior, he came in my office and he's like, I'm going to coach college football. So we had this conversation. At the end of the conversation, I'm like, well, what's plan B? And he's like, Coach, there's no plan B. I'm
on that move.
I'm not. There's no plan B. I'm going to coach college football, and I'm like, after he said it about 3 times, I'm like, well, maybe you've got a shot. So I think they're gritty. They're tough, and I mean, I'll be honest. Like, there's a little bit of flair there. Early in my career, I used to tell people like, my discipline and my character are more gangster than your bad boy gangster.
This my motherfucker right here. Let's get that one more time, Coach.
This is the clip if I've ever heard one.
Back in the day, I used to say my discipline and my character are more gangster than your bad boy gangster.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fucking love it.
So they have to have a little bit of that in them too, I mean, even with our athletes, Coach, you and I have talked about that before. You've got that kid that's a little bit edgy. He's got a little bit of piss and vinegar in his system, and you don't want to coach that out of him.
He believes in him.
Right?
They believe in themselves.
Yeah, you don't want to coach that out of him, man.
No, that's
you want that.
That's one of the most important things, isn't it? Because to succeed at a high level,
right?
It's a confidence or arrogance, and I would say in the arena, it's got to be a little bit more arrogance than even confidence, right? You have to have an unshakable belief that you can get this thing done. So you see that in coaching as well.
Absolutely. And obviously, we all have to, hopefully we've all got a little bit of piss and vinegar, or we all get a little bit of neon in our veins, whatever it is, but then as you grow, you learn how to handle that. Yeah. You learn how to handle that, because now you're running a business, or you're a coach, or you're a dad, and but you don't want to coach that out of them. So you can feel that, you can see that. I know you've had players that we've talked about. I've had plenty of players that we've seen that in, and sometimes our administration doesn't get it. It's like, no, trust me here. Let me, trust me here.
Yeah, so to take it back, you started in coaching baseball, and now you're coaching football.
Yeah.
So I think the difference between a good coach and a great coach is the ability to transcend across any sport. You're either a coach or you're not.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, like, some sports coaches might find success. Like, I'm a soccer coach, but I want to get to the point where I'm a good enough coach that I can go coach a baseball team or a football team or a hockey team, and it doesn't matter. I might not know the sport. I can learn it.
Right.
But to be a coach of players and be a coach of men and be a leader of men is a completely different level. Bill Belichick could go coach a soccer team and they would be successful. So what kind of things do you think that a coach can have that can get them from that good sports coach to like a legendary coach that can be a jack of all trades?
I think a hunger for that. I think a hunger for, you're always searching, across, you're watching these guys' stuff, you're watching Jordan Peterson, you're listening to Jocko, you're developing yourself all the time, and probably across a pretty wide spectrum, because the reality is you have to be first what you want them to be. Absolutely.
That's
you
fine.
have to be that first. They're going to look to you, and they're going to know, and they know.
Yep.
We all want to think they
I'm
don't know,
tweeting that
like
to
they
you.
know, man.
That's
they
fine.
know.
You can't give away what you don't first possess.
Yeah,
type
absolutely.
thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to become that, and they know that.
Yeah.
They know they'll figure out who you are after you coach them and coach them and coach them. They'll know who you are. So
That's
you're
amazing.
always striving for that.
That was some absolute fire.
Well, I heard Corey on one of his. You guys did that on campus thing one time, and you said like, I want my grandkids to say Grandpa was a G.
Yeah.
Oh man, never forgot that line. Never forgot that line.
Yeah, I could picture him saying it. Like, yeah, Grandpa done set us up on some crazy shit.
Yeah, Grandpa was a G. I love that line.
Yep,
absolutely.
for sure.
So you're just always searching, I think, to make yourself a better man, and then you give that, to them.
That's awesome, D.
I got nothing. I'm blown away.
Yeah, no,
That's
it's
it.
really good. I'm going to ask, so Schlegel was talking about, Schlegel was on Brian's podcast the other day, and he said that his weight room coach voice and situation and his home coach and voice of situation is two different guys that they don't talk real well to each other. So and I have some struggles with that sometimes
really
on
tricky.
how I would operate with one of the lifters in the morning, and even in business compared to how I operate at my house is I've struggled with pretty much my whole life because of my intensity is what it is, right? Yeah. How have you, because like football is an aggressive ass sport. I've seen him, turn on when I was at practice the other day. How do you say this is two different situations?
It's a real struggle. It was a struggle for me when I was younger. I'll be honest, and I'll tell you the biggest struggle for me was, early in my career, my oldest son was born. So all these things I'm saying to you, like I want like on steroids for my son.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to turn that off.
Yeah.
So I was bringing it home to him. I'm like, dude, I want him to be a pirate, but I want him to be a good guy. I want him to be a good guy. So like my son, it's good he's not here today. He has a ton of stories, and it was hard. And I think you do get better at, taking that deep breath and separating and, on your way home.
It's hard.
And it is hard. It's really, really tough. It's really, really tough. And, sometimes you do have to give yourself, a moment. Sometimes you stay in your office, for an extra 15 minutes, or, you turn on your radio and drive an extra mile around the block on the way home or whatever. It's like, okay, I'm going to be dad, husband, grandpa, whatever it is now.
When I even tried I had a talk with my son yesterday. I literally, this just kind of has been whirling around in my head. I was like, he was doing something in the gym that I wasn't feeling, and it was gym specific.
Right.
And I was like, the way I responded to you was because that's how that there's a different expectation when you walk in this fucking door.
Right.
Now, if you're at home and there's something and I need to give you a hug and support you, whatever, I can do that. But I'm just really trying to process that because as I get even more dialed and we're building stuff and we're pushing weight, like my intensity just continues and focus grows to where I know it's like at like kind of a like psycho level. So I'm trying to like understand that about myself, but it's really hard.
I think that's an important thing to think though. Like when you're in the gym, when you're in the gym, right? I'm not going to coach you like dad now. I'm going to coach you like Corey G.
Yes.
I'm going to coach you like Corey G now.
The expectation is
but when we
different.
get home, I'm going to be dad.
Yeah.
But it's so hard. It was so hard for me. It was so hard for me with my oldest because you have this certain image, of what your hopes are for him.
Sure.
So it was difficult.
And your ego can get in there too, I think.
Oh yeah.
I know I worry about that.
Sure.
This is the life I chose to live.
Right.
It's
There
not
you go.
necessarily my son or my daughters. Like that's not them. So you have to kind of meet them where they are. My wife gave me 3 rules. I have 3 rules. You guys can know this. 1, I have to wear sunscreen when I recruit. 2, I can't text and drive.
Okay. Well, what's number 3?
And here we go. 3rd one is don't come into the house on your phone. Like so,
That's a good one.
I like that.
The idea was exactly what you're saying because you come, you're in a practice environment, and I've had to sit in my driveway for a while, finish text, get myself calmed down because when I walk in that door, I have to be dad now, right? Like I have to be dad. I'm no longer coaching. Whatever conflict I just came from, it's over. So, anyways, I really appreciate that rule because at first I would come in, I'm still doing business, texting, still thinking about things, and your kids at that point just want you to play. They want dad.
But it's so hard, Like I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, Lancaster, Ohio, about as blue collar as you could get. Well, then you guys read my bio. Then I'm succeeding at a pretty high level. I'm pretty okay financially. I'm living with my kids and my wife in New Albany, but I don't want them to be, I still want him to have like some of that,
edge.
what I grew up with, that edge that I grew up with. Well, that's a really tricky thing. That's a really tricky thing because now I don't want my success to limit his toughness, his grit, whatever it is. So how do you do that?
It's such a paradox,
oh
right?
My gosh, it's crazy.
I always think about that. Like we work so hard to give our kids more than what we had, but if you give them too much, you're going to ruin them.
Yeah.
And by ruin them, I mean you want them to have those same qualities that made you great.
Yeah,
made you great as a coach, made you great as a man.
Yeah.
But you can easily take that out of them by giving them too much.
So difficult. We talked about Woody since he was a Denison guy, and Woody used to always say, like, if you want to ruin a young man, give him something he hasn't earned. Start giving him stuff he hasn't earned. There
he's dropping nuggets all over the place. Just repping what Woody said.
Let's tweet that real quick.
Jeez.
Yeah,
So
but that's
good.
hard when
That's
you
true.
succeed.
Yeah.
You're a blue collar guy. You had to work like crazy. You had a terrible car or no car, and you had
Yeah.
to work like crazy. And now you've succeeded, and you're looking at your kids. It's like, okay, but I want them to have some of that. How do
sure.
I make sure that happens?
It's tough.
It's
I think
tough.
like finding it through the weight room most recently has been helpful because of the missing weights and having to persevere through stuff.
Right.
But like it's not the same as like having like crazy life challenges. And so it's that's definitely been tough for me because
is.
like Mike said, the life that you want for you is not really what they want for them. And so like, if they're catching heat because I'm wild on social media or blinging out this or that, that's not their life. That's just the life they was born into.
Right, absolutely.
I say, look, when you guys are done, it's my money. You got to make your own.
Yeah, right. Right. There you go.
I'm spending it all. no,
There
but
you go.
it's just,
That's awesome.
but that's a tough, that is a really
Yeah.
tough balance.
Every successful person I know, business people, they all struggle
Yeah.
with this. Everybody goes, look, like I
Right.
don't want to give my kids all these things, but
Yeah.
I've worked really hard for
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who doesn't
Yeah.
grapple with that.
Yeah, and as hard as it is for us with our kids, like when you're coaching your team, you have those kids.
Yeah, sure.
Oh my gosh, you have those kids. They've never really, they're best athlete in their school. Their parents are very, have given them everything, and now that's a real challenge to get that kid at like 18 or 19 years old, and it's like, okay, how
to
can
put
I
some
pull
work
this
in.
kid? How can I pull this kid into this kind of community we're trying to develop?
With that, and one more thing, just kind of going off the balance of like training someone here or dealing with AG here versus at home.
Right.
It's not that much different than coaching either. I think a tough thing for kids to sometimes realize is that you can get on them in practice, like get on them, ride them, and then the first time after practice you say, all right,
Yeah,
G, have a good day.
I try to do that.
Yeah.
They don't wait a minute, you were just yelling at me. Like you were just getting on me. How can you now say,
Yeah.
hey, how's your mom and dad? But I think getting them to
Yeah.
understand that this is a
Right.
performance environment,
Yep.
right? We're performing now. Like we're all in.
Yeah.
Then once it's done, we're done.
Yeah.
Like it's all good, right? So
Yep.
I don't know. Do you guys understand? Have you ever
Yeah,
grappled
yeah.
with that just in general?
Well, I think I try to come
Crazy.
on the backside a lot and say, and I'm like kind of mushy. I'll just say, yo, I love you, dude, but like
Yep.
there's an expectation here.
Yeah.
That's it. Like
Yep.
that doesn't change the way I feel about
Right,
you.
absolutely.
It just changes what's going on here.
Yeah, I'd probably say I love you to my players more than any college coach in America,
I like
and I
that.
do, and because I know if I build trust and they know I care
Yeah.
about them, then I can go hard.
Yep.
Then I can go hard. We had a player a few years ago that, man, I was probably harder on him than anybody I've ever coached. But we had a great relationship, and the practice would be over. He'd walk over, put his arm around me on his way in the locker room. He's like, I love you, coach. I'm like, I love you too, man.
Yeah.
And we'd come out, and I'd get after him again the next day. But I think if they get to the point where they know that,
Sure.
you can go harder.
Well, I think it's getting them to understand that the criticism or the heavy-handedness is on their actions and their effort,
Yeah.
not them as a person or as
Right,
a young
absolutely.
man. And I think by like you said, telling them after, hey, I care about you, I love
Yeah.
you, this
Right.
is that, gets them to kind of understand the separation of it.
Absolutely.
But you have to hug too. You can't just always be giving them the rod. You have
Right,
to
absolutely.
you
Yeah, you have
mix
to
the
do
hugs
both.
in.
Right,
You got to do
have
both.
to.
I think that when I will if a guy takes a weight, misses it, whatever, and I'll force them to take something that might be super like difficult, whatever, and they get through it. I'm always like pushing them because I know they could be great. It's the same thing you're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
It's like if they can't do it for themselves,
Right.
and I'm the coach in the room, then I feel, and especially if I know they're capable of it, then that's going to be my push to go, nah, motherfucker, take it right now.
Yep.
Like, let's go, because I know I could see it in you. There was something either technical or your mind wasn't right, or so. Like, I don't do that a lot, but I will do that from time to time
Yeah.
to challenge some people and put
Sure.
people on the spot.
Absolutely.
Sometimes to see how they show up.
Yeah.
So,
This is what coaches do. We make you. At our best, you get people to do things that they didn't think they were capable
Yeah,
of. And I think that's why now, like most of us have kids, except for you, Tread. But that's what we want for our kids. That's why we put them in front of other coaches too. Because
Right.
I mean, I'll admit it. Like I'm hoping that a certain person can get this out of my kids that I can't, right? Because
Yep.
you'll meet that mentor
Yeah.
someday that.
Oh.
And this is all just sports talk, but.
Yeah.
It's the same thing you were saying, D, about the guy who's in med school, and he's like, you know what, like I can handle anything because
Yeah.
I've been through workouts
Stevie
with Coach
Chan.
D. Yeah, like
Yeah.
so if you
Yeah.
can, that's kind of what you're trying to empower people with. So
Yeah.
I just think as coaches, as part of our job is to coach people hard because, as a parent, I don't want to coach my kid that hard.
No.
I don't want to.
But you do always want them to find that.
That's right. I
Like,
wanna,
you know what's great for me right now?
I pray
Mike?
for that.
Yeah. My kid coaches at Ohio Northern. He's still pretty young, right? And the wrestling coach there is a great dude. And he's like my son's guy. You
Pushes
know?
him.
Yeah, he's like my son's guy. He pushes him to be a better guy, so it's awesome. When I went up to, I'm there for AJ's wedding and that wrestling coach is there. It was amazing.
You got to hook him up with D.
Him. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have to have him on sometime.
Yeah,
that'd be
for
great.
sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Treyway, I know you got something going on in that brain.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking back to your career in total, and you made the jump from high school. I mean, you were at a successful high school in New Albany to college. And so for a lot of guys like myself, like, it's hard to see that link. Like, I'm not saying I want to go be a college coach, but right now I'm in high school, and a lot of people think that that's the natural progression. What does that real step look like, and how do you get there? Because that's a huge leap from high school to college.
Yeah, it is. It is a big leap. Yeah, that's a tough question, because there's all kinds of different pathways to go from high school coaching to college coaching,
You got thrown into head baseball coaching, so I didn't.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That
Was it just the
crazy.
opportunity was there, and you're like, "Hey, I got this"?
The opportunity was there. Like I told you, I'd had like a 2-year delay in going to college, so chose to be like an assistant coach there, and things were just going really, really well, and the people at the university thought pretty highly of me. So when the head coach resigned, they called me in. It was kind of funny. The athletic director called me in. He's like, "Hey, what's your interest in this job?" And
Were you surprised?
Well, yeah. My response was, "Well, we're on a pretty good trajectory right now. I want it to continue." He's like, "No.
You are the trajectory."
What's your and I'm like, "Oh, wow. Okay." I was kind of completely caught off guard.
That's cool.
Completely caught off guard. If you're really trying to make that jump, I think you just try to keep involving yourself, in the sport, camps, clinics, meeting coaches, going to coaches camps, and trying to involve yourself that way, and then obviously continuing to develop yourself.
Build relationships.
Yeah, build relationships. I mean, the biggest difference, maybe the biggest difference is the recruiting piece.
How does the coach get on your radar?
Man, that's really crazy. Through that, through connectivity, through somebody I know, because I'm very, very protective of that. And it's hard to cold interview people.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really hard. You've looked at their resume, you've talked to them, like, it's hard. So usually through connectivity, a friend, a colleague, somebody that played for you, through that.
They almost have to have a link.
Yeah, they almost have to have a link to you, because I'm very protective of, first of all, my own job, but I'm very protective of our community, our school, our players, our families. I feel a huge obligation. I've got a 17, 18-year-old sitting in my office with mom and dad, and if they choose to come to Denison, a big part of that's probably they believe that I'm a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
They believe in me
It's
and
a
what
huge
we're
responsibility.
doing. So I do. So I'm very protective of who I hire.
What makes
So
a
you
great
almost have a
assistant? Once they're now working for you, you've had a lot of assistants, and you've been an assistant. So I'd like to hear the difference between being a head and being an assistant, and then what makes an elite, not a good one, but what makes an elite assistant.
That's a great question, Mike
Appreciate it.
Deegan.
That's how you
Man,
wrap
I'm telling you what,
down.
you guys are getting amazing at podcasting. I love it. Let's go.
I'm telling you that's another tough question, but I think everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's a little bit different. So whatever traits it is to make them great, playing on that. Like I have a guy on my staff now who is the most conscientious, hardest worker, but he's a little bit quiet now. He's tough as nails, but he's a little bit quiet. He wants to do his work. He locks it down. Like the guys in his room love him, but if you just met him, you might take a step back. Like he's a tough dude, but that's what makes him great as far as a coach. And then you have other guys that are like personality plus. They are. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Austin was personality plus, and that's what made Austin great. I think at the end of the day, them being part of that vision with you, is a big deal. I mean, this is hard to say because it sounds arrogant, but they have to be your guy.
Yeah.
They have to
You're
be
the
your
CEO,
guy.
coach.
They
They got to be.
I heard somebody ask somebody one time, like, what happens if you're not on board with Saban? And they kind of were taken back. It's like,
fucking you're off the board
you're
then.
It's not you can't be not on board with Saban.
Yeah.
So honestly, they have to really believe in your vision for what's happening in the program, the players, and believe in that and be your guy. You know, they have to be.
Well, if they're not, the players can feel that.
Oh,
right
yeah,
away.
absolutely. That's not good, you know.
Yeah.
It's
That's
not
how
good,
to fragment
you know?
things real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we talked about it in the past. One voice. You know,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Behind closed doors, you want to hear every opinion that you could possibly get.
Every single one.
Let's fight. Let's kick
Yep.
around. But once we walk out that door,
Yeah.
we have to go put a
We have to
unified
go walk
front.
out together. That's right.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Who was the most influential coach on you, or who was the best coach you were ever around personally? If you had to think, or a couple, it doesn't have to be one. Mm-hmm. Like made the biggest impact in person, like somebody you were around, you saw their style, you saw the way they operate, you were like, yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're probably both high school guys, so
Okay.
I'm not sure they're anybody that anybody had ever heard of. Maybe locally.
Show them some
Give a
love.
plug, yeah.
I
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
I will. Real early in my career, I got to coach at Newark Catholic, and I was too young to get that job. You know, I was coaching with Coach Graham. We were on our way to a 5th straight state title, you know, and the guy was just unbelievable energy, you know, and his positives were he was just loved football and loved strategy, and he just had unbelievable energy. Like he could sell anything to anybody. Like he was, and just watching him was very, very influential. And then, you know, when I was the next job, I was still very young. You know, I was at Bishop Watterson with Mike Golden, and Mike was like a little bit different than Coach Graham. You know, Mike was like the classic, like great teacher, great guy. Like, you know, everybody loved him. Like he was the guy, like if you were a parent, you were coming into school to try to get your kid in Coach Golden's class.
Got it.
You know, but those two were I was young and they were very influential on my career.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. And usually it is young. It's the younger years.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
hey, I went to a seminar with so-and-so and learned all that. It's like,
Right.
you know, usually when you're young and trying to
Right.
figure it out.
Right.
Well, it's at that point you're probably not really shaped as a coach yet.
No,
You know, I mean,
that's
those are the
absolutely
guys that
true.
kind of really help shape your mindset as a
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean, our intensity got shaped really young, too, by our high school weightlifting coach.
Sure.
He was like 23 years old, so he just got out of playing college football at Eastern Michigan. He came in here and was banging iron, like, you know, with loud music and getting after it, and he didn't look that much different. I mean, he was way bigger than us, but he wasn't that much older, and it
Right.
shaped now that I look back, I don't know that he even knew that much more than we did, to be honest.
Well, that's the funny thing. He'll still randomly message me every 3 or 4 months with like a training question.
Yeah.
You know, so this is the guy that was like had a huge impact on us,
Yeah.
and obviously we've learned so much since then. But if I had to put him up there as like,
Yeah.
he's definitely been one of the most influential people on
Right.
me in the weight room.
Right.
And now, you know, 25
That's
years
cool.
later, he is looking to me for advice. And
That's so good.
Yeah, and really compared to what we know now, he doesn't know anything.
No.
Which, you know, it's not a slight at all. It's just kind of.
Well, it's our
Yeah.
job, you know what I mean? And he
Yeah.
was just helping out because he was assistant football coach.
Yeah.
But it was a huge impact on
It
us.
kind of goes back to that question, like what makes a great assistant coach? I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, strategy, you know, technique.
We bought in.
And you have to have that. But if you have that person that loves what they do, they can feel that, man. They have their own type of energy, be it the tough guy I was talking about or the guy that's like, you know, out there, like energy, super. Yeah. I mean, they can feel that.
Well, and we didn't play
we all
football.
did.
So we were the
Right.
outliers that were weightlifting guys that didn't play
Right.
football. I
Right.
quit playing when I was a freshman, and Dustin
Yeah.
never played
Never
football. So
played.
Right.
so we was locked in to him, but we weren't on the team.
Right.
So that was even a different dynamic.
Yeah, that's cool though.
It was cool.
Yeah, I think mid-'90s, you know, weightlifting was not popular like it is now. You didn't have a million things that you could learn on Instagram, and everyone didn't lift.
Yeah.
Like, you lifted if you played football, basically.
Yeah.
And we were
Yeah.
the kids that didn't play football that liked to
That
lift.
were as strong as the guys
Yeah.
that did play football.
Yeah, it's crazy how much lifting has changed. Like I was
Oh,
saying,
man.
I alluded to that before. Like growing up, like I'm graduated from high school in 1979. Growing up in my town, like I was starving. I was buying muscle and fitness. I was going to every different gym in town. The reason I got hooked up with Slater is because his mom and dad's hardware store, I didn't even know what a supplement was, and they sold product from Beverly International.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I
That's how we started taking supplements too,
right?
Beverly. Yeah,
so
yeah.
I bought protein powder at Slater's Hardware
That
by
is
Beverly
amazing.
from the Slater family. You know,
So,
so it's crazy.
Right, the muscle provider.
Yeah.
right.
Quick
Yeah.
side story. So they really helped me get in the supplements because we were both taking a lot of Beverly, like getting ready for bodybuilding
Right.
shows. And then I saw this guy's name on the front of the jug named Dr. Eric Serrano. And he was the formulator of Ultra Size, which was one of Beverly's products. And then I started trying to figure out where he was and realized he was in Pickerington. And then I started showing up at his office when I was like 20 until he would just basically be my friend. And then
That's
the
awesome.
third time he finally, and he's been friends and mentor us for 20 years.
Yeah.
But he was the initial formulator for all the MP products, and all of that stemmed from Beverly International.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
yeah.
is crazy.
I just
and the
saw his-
Slaters are still connected to him.
Oh, yeah.
I'm real
Oh,
good
yeah.
friends with his.
But
with
Slater's been
Steve's-
around. He's an OG. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think he's still their doctor.
Yeah, I'm
think-
sure.
I think
I'm
he
sure
is,
he
yeah.
is. That's amazing. Well, and Steve Slater had a lot to do with strongman. He made
He
the
makes the
Atlas
log- the log
stones,
presses.
the
Still
logs.
does, right?
So
yeah.
he's a heavy player, and that's what's
Yeah.
interesting about Ohio. There is a lot of kind of guys like that are
Yeah.
around, and that's cool that you were kind of around guys
Yeah.
like that young.
Man, he owes me a little bit today. I plugged him a couple.
Yeah,
times
you
today
did.
on your podcast.
I haven't
So-
heard Steve's name in a while. It's good.
So I'm familiar with who he is, and obviously
Uh-huh.
with his equipment and stuff like that. And I know they've had the hardware store down there forever. But
Right.
back when you were a high school kid, I mean, was he out there like kind of running group workouts and stuff, or would
No,
you guys?
he's actually even a little bit younger.
Yeah,
than
he's a
me.
little
Oh,
so
I
he
gotcha.
was training and getting involved in training, and some ways a little bit different back then. Like if you were training hard, you were more of a bodybuilder guy.
Yeah.
It wasn't as much a powerlifting stuff then. It was more bodybuilding, and Steve was more involved in that. But he's just slightly younger than me. His sister and her husband are our age. We actually are a couple friends with them, my wife and I.
That's cool.
So yeah, still pretty connected to that career.
They're doing a bunch of old volume workouts, probably, D. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the only thing
Yeah.
we had access
That's the
to
only
in
thing.
muscle
That's
magazines.
Right. That's right. That was the only thing that was out there.
What makes there's a lot of strength guys that I think pay attention to us too because we're from that world, right?
Right.
What in your mind makes a great strength coach? Like who or whether it's assistant, whether it's what are you looking? Because you see Mickey, you know what I mean? He's a Valley
Right.
guy. He's
Right.
he's kind of nuts. You can see it. You see
Right.
there's the really super technical guys. Do you
Yeah.
want the raw slash like what's a good combo? And you
A good combo of
Yeah.
that. Somebody you feel comfortable that like they really do know a little bit about what they're doing.
Yeah,
they
of
know
course.
they know the science, they know training. They've educated themselves. In whatever way that happened, but they've educated themselves. As we all know, in that world, there are people that have degree after degree after degree, and there are people that are self-educated in that world, and they're very talented. And but then the other piece for me is like they have to be. For me, because I'm a sports coach, they have to be part of my culture. Like they can't let, if the rule is if the lift starts at 7:35, the kid's got to get in the room at 7:35. And, if you let one of my best players walk in late every day, man, you're probably killing my culture.
Yep.
If there's a certain dress code in that weight room, and you're letting one of my better players, especially one of the better players, walk in out of dress code, then that's a problem. And it's hard because I tell my staff every year, I take my staff on a 3-day retreat every year. We just talk about everything. And one of the things is like some kids are easy to yell at and some kids are almost impossible. Nobody wants to yell at them. And that's hard for your strength coach sometimes. Like superstar wide receiver walks in the room. He's out of dress code. He kind of lets it slip a little bit, or he walks in a minute and a half late. He lets it slip a little bit because superstar wide receiver is hard to yell at. You can yell.
It's always the wideouts.
Yeah,
It's
right.
always the wideouts.
It's always the wideouts. It's always the wideouts. It always is. And then on the opposite spectrum, there's those kids that like everybody can yell at. Like it's
Yeah.
like everybody yells at that kid. Everybody holds that kid accountable. So I mean, them
Keeping the same standard.
keeping the same standard.
Man, that's low-key
same
wisdom right
standard,
there, by the way.
you know.
That wasn't part of your story, but identifying those kids, because you're right, some people become
Yeah.
a whipping person. Right?
Sure, they're
And-
easy.
And I think about it, everyone just piles on.
They're easy.
Players pile on it.
Sure.
But there's that person who does the same
Yeah.
thing that no one touches. So
Right. And
to
we
be
have
a-
that.
Why
I
are
mean-
they so elusive though?
I think it's just the way they carry themselves. It's
Yeah.
it's no different than I think as you start moving as adults. Like there's just people that you kind of hold on a different
Yeah.
category, and it's not right. And I'm really glad you said that because
Yeah.
that's really powerful. Because go ahead.
Well, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna tell you kind of the flip side of that. Having been a strength coach at Ohio State,
Right.
I think holding everyone accountable, especially the stars, is hard because you're the strength coach. You're an outsider in some ways because
Right.
maybe you're only there. With me, I was there 3 days a week, part time. So I'm part of the team. I'm part of the coaching staff, but I'm removed from it in a way.
Right.
Well, my biggest thing is I want to get these guys to buy into what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Well, now, I got to try to enforce these rules that are not necessarily my rules that I might not even really agree with. And guess what? The star player, maybe wants to kind of skate by a little bit. There was times I gave guys more leeway than I should have. Where maybe I let this guy's an All-American. I let him be late a little bit. I'm like, hey, he's like, oh yeah, I had it. I had this. Okay, You know,
Yeah.
when really I'm not supposed to do. I'm supposed to drop the hammer on because guess what? I want them to like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I want them to buy into what I'm doing.
It's real
But
hard.
in the dynamics of the team, you know, if Tom Ryan knew that, he probably wouldn't have liked that.
Yeah, no. He
So
probably would've
it's
for
tricky.
sure.
You know, it
Yeah.
sounds
It
easy to
is.
say, hey,
no,
you
it's
gotta,
not easy.
You know, it's
Yeah.
not.
No, it's not
That's,
easy at all.
that's a great point.
We've
D.
to kind of bring it all together. We've talked about this. That the strength coach is so critical, especially at our level. They spend more time with the strength coach than they do with us a lot of times.
A lot of times.
Especially in the out of season.
In the off season for sure.
Completely so. So that person is so important. So yeah, technical science, all that, but how they're holding the line. And even I agree with what you were saying there, D. I think there's a human side of that where that person is trying to win their room too, right? So they're working and moving and
Yeah.
shaking. But I guess maybe I'm just trying to emphasize how important that position is, almost vitally important to the culture of the program.
Yeah. And I think as a strength coach, probably you have to be able to walk that line. You know, because probably that kid has the team.
Yeah, you need him.
Yeah.
He's probably the one. He's probably the one steering the ship. Like our quarterback right now, Drew's steering the ship. You know, so our strength coach needs to win Drew over.
Yeah,
so
that
it's
makes
got to
sense.
be a
Yeah,
real
absolutely.
tough. It's got to be a real tough line. Now, you know, for me, we're good when you don't have to hold Drew to the line. Drew's like the guy.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, he's doing
Yeah,
exactly
that's
what
because
you
then the
want.
rest of the team
That
will fall in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes life
That's a
great
special
for all of
sauce.
us. When
Yeah.
you find that, when you have that, like you got a shot. You know,
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's why-
But that
you know,
changes every recruiting class, don't
changes
it?
every recruiting class. Absolutely.
What you got, Treway?
So you've been around for a while. You've seen
Mm-hmm.
it all, different levels. So how do you keep yourself sharp and chasing edges and continually getting better?
Yeah, I mean, I just still love it. You know, I love the strategy of it. I like, you know, I think I've heard a lot of people like, as they get my age, like they don't like recruiting, and I love it. I love calling them on the phone, and I love texting with them, and you know, building a relationship, and you know, I really like that part.
You think
but
it's
I
the
still,
challenge of it? You know what I
think
mean?
It's like
so.
a business. Everyone's like a business deal.
Yeah, yeah.
every single one's like a business deal.
It's like you're out there
know,
playing
every single
the
one.
field. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, and yeah, so I still love that, and I still love the strategy. You know, like I just got back from the convention, you know, and all of a sudden I'm looking and it's like, oh, you know what? Coach Fitz from Northwestern's talking about this today on their defense, and I want to hear it. Like I'm like the first one in the chair, you know, because I
love
still
that.
want to hear it, you know. So, yeah, I think I don't know. It's just I still love it.
You get that weight belt mentality still, don't you, Coach? You're still a weight belt.
You can
You're-
feel
Yeah,
it. You
still
can
like,
feel it.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, and so
absolutely.
sometimes when people ask me about still competing, that's the way I feel. Like it's just like anything else. Like if I can't get it off my mind, I can't wait till the
Yeah.
next competition. I can't
Right.
wait to push. It's the same type of thing. Like
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
business, the next venture. It's just like I'm still hungry for it. Right?
Yeah.
It's not. I can't like stop it.
Right.
So
I know.
until
I
it
understand
stops
that.
itself, right?
I understand that.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
can see it when you talk to the joy
Yeah.
that came over your face.
Right.
It's like you're like, this is just what I do.
Yeah. And sometimes it's random, right?
Yeah.
You'll be at a restaurant and, you know, you'll be at a restaurant and all of a sudden something's there and you're scribbling on a napkin, you know, or whatever. And, you know, your family's just shaking their head. It's like, oh my God, You know, it's like, what the heck? I remember one time when like AJ, my son that's at Ohio Northern, you know, we're at dinner one time and he asked something and we're doing offense and defense with the sugar packets on the table. It's like unbelievable, you know? So
Love
yeah,
it.
I just still love it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Is there current coaches that inspire you? That
Love Coach Fitz.
Okay.
I love Coach Fitz at Northwestern.
Yeah, Brian played for him. He talked amazing stuff about him.
just seems just a great guy, and he's been really good to me. And I associate with him because I know it's Division I, but maybe a similar situation.
School-wise.
Real high academic school. He prides himself on being a little bit blue collar, and his team
definitely
playing that
is.
way. You know, and he is that. I guess the same with David Shaw at Stanford because it's a similar situation.
Yeah.
You know, so I associate with those guys.
Like Ivy
because-
League guys, basically, almost.
yeah, I mean, I think, you know, certainly a higher level. You know, we're not playing in the Big Ten. We're not playing the Pac-12. I mean, but still, like, their job is somewhat similar. So I really listen to them a lot and associate with them a lot.
Hey, if you can sell these kids on saying, hey, we're going to conduct ourselves like Northwestern or we're going
Right.
to conduct ourselves like Stanford,
Absolutely.
then you're going to win.
Yeah.
I would say the way that Denison is looked upon in D3 is like an Ivy League high level. Obviously,
Sure.
with your guys is the way what you guys are
Right.
building on top of it.
Right.
I mean, it's a definitely like a privilege, and there's
Yeah.
an awesome winning mentality coming to
Yeah.
Denison.
And I think I was talking about that blue collar, like look, that chip on your shoulder
Yeah.
mentality. Like I can use the Northwestern things with my players or Stanford, my players understand. It's like, well, hey, listen, Alabama and Georgia and Clemson didn't wake up this morning and say, wow, I wonder what Northwestern's doing. We're a little bit scared of them, you know? And it's the same thing with us. Like, you know, like, hey, listen, you can get your feelings hurt or not, but Mount Union didn't wake up this morning and say, hey, I wonder what Denison's doing today.
That's facts.
You know? So they kind of associate with that, you know? And, you know, so we feel like we have to play with a little bit of a blue-collar mentality, chip on our shoulder. So that's been a big part of it.
I'll come over there and speak. I'll give him some blue-collar, Coach.
I think I need to go over and talk to administration. I don't know why Denison doesn't have a wrestling program.
Yeah,
I
that's
wish we
true.
did.
Yeah, I mean, Central Ohio high
wish
school
we
wrestling
did.
is on the rise. I mean, it
Yep.
would seem like a chip shot. We can
Yeah.
start.
Have they ever had wrestling?
I'm not sure, Coach. I'm not sure if they have had it or not. And I have lost a couple, one or two recruits to it.
Yeah, because they
You know,
want
kids
to
that want both.
Yeah.
Kids that want to try to do both. At a
I'm
small
telling you,
school.
we could start an old school to Denison wrestling
we go.
pipeline.
There you go.
Oh,
I'm just
shit.
saying.
That'd be
Let's
awesome.
go.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, you get some gritty guys in the room that are your
That'd be
D
awesome.
linemen,
There we
right?
go. I'll take that.
That's awesome. Treadway,
Man.
you always got like a million questions. So.
Yeah, I'm just, Corey kind of touched on, who you draw inspiration from and guys that you look up to. And, we always talk about the good things, but what are some bad traits that you've you come across? Like you see a coach doing something, you're like, man, I would do it this way. And, not to call anybody out, but, certain things you see maybe on the sideline or you see how they prep themselves and like some negative characteristics that you think can lead to failure.
That's
So
a
we
really
can
good
stay away
question.
from those things.
Yeah. So I don't do those.
Yeah, I think for me at this level and what I watch, like an awareness of like what your job is, and what you're trying to do, and you get it out of whack. You just get it out of whack. Like, like I said, I talk about noble manhood all the time, and I think
Explain that, Coach. When you say that, what noble manhood? What's your like definition?
I think sometimes like I want to make sure our young people don't get a misview of what manhood is. So we talk about more noble traits. It's like there's nothing wrong with cigars and dark whiskey and pickup trucks. There's nothing wrong with those.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make you a man.
No, just because you
You know,
do those don't
no.
mean you're a fucking dude.
No.
Yeah.
So you talk about, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do your job, taking care of your family, taking care of your business, running your life the right way, making a right choice. You're in that position where you could make the easy choice and maybe even win in it, but it's not the right choice, and trying to make the right choice. So basically those values.
Just do the right shit.
I mean, I'm just going to say, like, sometimes I think the people that get in trouble is like football's too important or baseball's too important. It's like, it's not like when I'm hiring a coach, it's not the first thing I do isn't put them on the board and figure out like, how much they know about defensive strategy or offensive strategy. The first thing I'm trying to do is figure out like who they are as a man,
Right.
Because I think that's going to help us. And I think for the most part, that's what gets people out of whack. Whatever it is, ego, whatever it is, a lack of awareness is what they're trying to do. Because I think no matter what you're in, I think the process wins. Absolutely, the process wins. And
Man, the value you are bringing, Coach, is
Amazing.
epic, bro. For
Really
real.
good. Really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Can
like,
we just add a permanent fifth?
I mean,
coach?
jeez. When you're available in between games, Coach, I'm telling you, this is unreal. Unreal.
I think we're probably winding down.
Yeah.
But it just, I'd like to hear just if you have any advice, any suggestions for people that are in the profession, young people. You've run the gamut from high school assistant to head coach of baseball at the collegiate level. Like, what advice would you give? Anything you have that's been unspoken that you think could really help some people today?
yeah, be diverse in your search. I've mentioned a couple football coaches, but I watch and study as many people outside of football as I do inside of football. From Jocko to Jordan Peterson. I mean, I quoted something from one of his videos. It must have been, I don't know how many years ago the video was, a long time ago. So diversify in your development. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter like who it is. From like Simon Sinek to Brene Brown, to it doesn't matter.
Knowledge is knowledge, right?
Yeah, diversify in your development.
Don't get stuck in one lane.
Right.
Yeah.
Diversify in your development.
Damn, I think that's you guys good. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks for your
Great.
time,
Thank
Oh,
you.
Jack. That
thanks
was
for having me,
unbelievable.
man. It was awesome.
Whew, Coach's Clinic.
Really enjoyed it.
Our coaching staff, Mike Deegan, Tyler Treadway, Dustin Myers, I'm your boy Corey G, and Jack Hatem. It was awesome having you on.
Thanks for having me today,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
All right,
Thank
we're
you.
out.